Okay, I think that we are good with the live stream. So welcome everybody to the first podcast launched by the Institute of Social Sciences and Humanities Skopje in collaboration with our international partners. On this panel, we dive deep into one of the most urgent challenges in the Western Balkan today: anti-EU discourses, informational disorder, and the narratives that threaten to stall the European integration of North Macedonia and Serbia. In 2025-26, our project combating anti-EU discourses and misinformations in North Macedonia and Serbia, sponsored by the International Visegrad Fund, seeks to go beyond simple fact-checking. We are not just rebutting falsehoods, we are analyzing how narratives are built, how actors shape public perceptions, and why the line between pro-EU and anti-EU has become so blurry. Over a series of episodes, you hear from researchers, civil society leaders, academics, and regional experts, all working to reclaim the discourse. We'll unpack how disappointed Europeans, once staunch proponents of EU integration, are turning skeptical, how pro-Russian narratives are gaining ground, and why some public voices frame the EU not as a democratic partner, but as a trap. Ultimately, our goal is not to solve a political problem, but to understand how the anti-EU narratives come to being in our region. To envision a stronger, more resilient European path forward, what would a renewed public conversation look like if we rebuild trust in the European values? How can we amplify voices that truly believes in the EU promises? And whatever they come from North Macedonia, Serbia, or the Visegrad region. In this first episode, we'll start by settling the scene. Where are North Macedonia and Serbia on their EU paths today? What major obstacles stands in their way, and how did we get here? I'm your host, Risto Aleksovski, and I'm honored to guide you through this important journey. Let's begin. Today's panel brings together an extraordinary group of thinkers and practitioners who work directly shape public discourses, academic research, and policy across the region. Our speakers are Christina Griessler, researcher fellow of Andrássy University Budapest, specialized in Western Balkans, EU enlargement, and ethnic conflicts. She holds a PhD in political science from the University of Vienna and advanced diplomas in conflict resolution. Her work focuses on peace, reconciliation, and regional cooperation. Jelisaveta Blagojević, professor of political philosophy at the Faculty of Media and Communication in Belgrade. She worked at the intersection of contemporary political theory, feminism, and queer studies, and critical theory with numerous publications on democracy, subjectivity, and media. Spasimir Domaradzki, assistant professor at the University of Warsaw and senior analyst at the Institute of Central Europe. His research covers EU enlargement, Central and Eastern European politics, and human rights. He is also a Visegrad Insight Fellow and a member of Team Europe Poland. Michal, assistant professor of Metropolitan University Prague and board member of Eurothink Skopje. He specializes in European integration and regional dialogue, including Bulgarian and North Macedonian relation. He has held fellowships in Berlin, Prague, Vienna, and CEU. Juraj Marušiak, director of the Institute of Political Science at the Slovak Academy of Sciences. His work focuses on Central and Eastern European policies, nationalism, and post-Second World War Slovak history. He's the author of several monographs on political and regional development. Let's dive straight into the subject at hand by asking our first panelist, Spasimir. In your view, what are the key internal shortcomings of challenges currently holding back North Macedonia and Serbia in the EU accession processes?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Risto. Thank you for the invitation to this panel, and it's wonderful that this is the first step of another joint project. It's also very nice to see all colleagues on board. So it's a nice beginning, and you start with a question straight in the heart. What are the current problems? And I think that this is a very crucial matter because although we can trace alternative trends in Serbia and North Macedonia, Quite paradoxically, we can also see links between the two processes, which are actually delivering a relatively negative overview of the perspective for membership of both countries in the EU. And when we were agreeing to have this podcast this evening, I was thinking that from the whole plethora of issues that deserve attention, probably the one that I would like to talk about is the question of agency. Because this is one of the things that I have the feeling that is missing in the whole discourse about the perspective of membership, both in Skopje and in Belgrade. The more I participate in various meetings, I have the feeling that especially the representatives from the countries, from the region, constantly generate kind of claims that the EU needs to do more for them, that there is a need to be understood, that there is a need to be taken into consideration what is happening, and that kind of more agency is needed on behalf of the EU. And this is the point that I would like to tackle just a little bit in the context of our today's discussion, because the memories from Central Europe, and in particular what I remember when it comes to the Polish experience on the road to the EU, rather delivered exactly the opposite impression. It is not that Polish politicians were not expecting and not delivering speeches and expectations that the EU should do this or that. But what was most important was the internal determination to join the EU at national level. And this is something that, to my concern, is profoundly missing, both in Serbia and in North Macedonia. And this is not to say that there is no discussion or not debate about the EU, but we see what is the situation currently. When it comes to the position of North Macedonia, and on it I will focus first, later on if we want in the second round, maybe I can turn also on the matter of Serbia, especially as there are others who also deal very well with this question. We see, I would generalize two main challenges. The first one is foreign obstacles, and the second one is internal apathy. In other words, when it comes to the foreign dimension, we know it's Bulgaria, it's the problem, it's the veto, which is technically gone, but it is still there in the hearts and minds, especially of the ruling party. What is most important is actually to put all the energy on redefining the negotiation framework instead of putting the energy on the internal mobilization to make a difference. And why this is important? Because this also generates the second problem, which is the internal apathy. People are fed up, they're tired of watching and listening and imagining that something might happen which is not happening. And that naturally generates, and I would argue that through this behavior, the currently ruling party generates indirect anti-EU discourse in North Macedonia. But what is the, let's say, the key element of my point about agency? When Poland wanted to join, it was aware of one thing. Of course, it is a bilateral issue between Poland and the EU, but on the other hand, it required enormous mobilization of national resources. And the Polish state, between 1997 and 1998, along with the negotiation process, initiated a national integration strategy, which recognized the need not only for the government to do its job with the EU, but for every single element of the state existence, from self-government through regional governments, through the national government, through every single director of a school, to put an effort to frame the ground for the membership in the EU. And we can ask ourselves to what extent we see that in North Macedonia. The bottom line is that the political discourse around the enlargement was being kidnapped around the question of the Bulgarian veto. It dominates the whole spectrum of the debate about the EU, leaving no room for any mobilization, any awareness that we can do the things. Because we tend to create myths about the EU, but the EU in its essence is a formula of group of countries that function based on obligations. And these obligations generate also an expectation towards others. If Macedonia will be doing its homework, it will have the leverage to push the EU to move on with the enlargement. But if the Macedonian authorities prefer to stick glued to a topic that is absolutely irrelevant and concentrate on it the whole energy on the enlargement, we actually face a reality where we are currently. And this is the bottom line of my thought about the question of mobilization and agency. If you manage to prove and show with actions that you want to the EU, it's not about Bulgaria. It is about internal reforms. It is about fighting corruption. It is about division of powers. It is about independent judiciary. It is about responsibility of political actors. And if you manage to prove that you can deliver that, no one will really pay attention to the question what the Bulgarians think about the EU membership of North Macedonia. But as long as you don't do these things, you hide behind the problem of potential Bulgarization, which in itself is an absurd argument. And I think I can stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all of this. I'm basically absolutely in line with everything that you said. And yeah, I'm seeing, as a North Macedonian, I'm seeing this quite clearly now. Keep in mind that we have a fresh example from our neighbors Albania, who a couple of days ago, triumphantly opened the last chapter. So, and it was a part of determination. Very hard, very straightforward, very, maybe more aggressive in some parts, but that was the main goal. And we see that this can function, minus the blockades and so on and so on. But even if either way, Albania has had a blockade from Greece, which they overcome, but on the reform part, it was a very straightforward thing. Okay, thank you, Spasimir. We will come back with the second question. You, Christina, the same.
Yeah, thanks,
question. Yeah.
I mean, thanks very much for inviting me to join the panels. It's a pleasure to be with you all and to discussing that topic, which is very important. And you're really starting with the very tough questions, because I just would really wanted to turn it around and say, is it, I mean, Spasimir mentioned it, is it maybe not the obstacles are outside of North Macedonia rather than inside? But I think Spasimir made very good points, and I think there is always two sides to it. So from my external perspective on the situation in Northern Macedonia, is that, okay, first of all, I mean, even compared with Serbia, maybe, there are the neighbors which are, having their issues, or, where the relations have to be defined and clarified for both countries. But as well, we talk about the EU, and I think the EU has a problem there. I mean, Spasimir was talking about the agency of Northern Macedonia, but what about the agency of the EU? The EU Commission promised North Macedonia several times that they're able to be, join the European Union, and they were the first one signing even the stabilization and association agreement, and then fall behind because the EU is not a monolith, because the EU member states started to become the obstacles, and we had even France certainly deciding out of internal political reasons to stop the process. Of course, we have Bulgaria, who just try to divert from internal problems as well. Greece for many years. So I do understand that North Macedonia has maybe that the internal determination has a bit weakened, because even if North Macedonia is going to implement reforms, there is no security or no guarantee that you're moving forward. And still, this is because it was very interesting that you brought in now Albania as an example. We will see what happens to Albania. I mean, I think even France could be in the last minute have the idea that maybe, there could be an issue, or maybe Greece back again. That's the problem with the EU member states, that sometimes they realize, oh, actually at the moment, we would like to delay an enlargement as well out of internal reasons. But okay, I think the problem with the internal determination is that it's weakened because of all the delays and blockages for many years. That the EU is not a monolith, so there you have the Commission, you have the Council, you have the EU member states, and every time in the process, there could be a stop to the movement forward. But I think, and that may be in relation to agency, maybe even looking at all the reforms Northern Macedonia has to implement or just start doing, why not looking at the reforms which make sense to the state anyway? So independently of the EU membership or not. I mean, I think there's a lot of things which, political elite or the government or even the population says it makes sense. So should we go for it and do certain reforms and show that we can do reforms, that we can implement something? So getting a dynamic into the system, saying we are able to do something, and maybe even for that the population becomes more involved in saying, what do we really want from our government? So do we want the EU membership, or are there other issues which are more important and pressure the political elite for certain reforms? I mean, this could be reform points or reform issues which they need to do anyway for a new enlargement. But I think really to establish the link between people and government again, and that the government has a responsibility to more or less reform the system so that it benefits the people. And it could be that on the long run, therefore then they're showing that they're really interested in the EU enlargement. They're showing that they can do reforms, the government can show that they bring along the population, and then it creates maybe a positive dynamics for EU enlargement. So that would be my take on it, but I know maybe it's a bit too idealistic, but I think I'm very happy to discuss that in the next.
No, you're on the point, because for a long time the EU voices in North Macedonia, I'm guessing that Becca will say from the Serbian side, but that was the key point of the EU integration. The reforms by themselves are good. That was the key point. We are not doing that to please somebody. We are doing that because these are mechanisms that are proven to be working. Nothing else. That was the whole course of action. And I think a lot of people were. It's very funny because it's very stupid when I translate this in English. They want the normal things. They want a system that works, that protects, that functions, not dependent of the political elites, and so on and so on and so on. That was there was no great narrative, not great narrative, no big, nationalistic or so on and so on. No, the people wanted a working system, and for a very long time, EU was basically the glue of that, which couple of after the I don't know, the last veto starts to erode, but we will see how to like get back to that narrative. Okay, now we have Jelisaveta. I think the Macedonian Serbian perspective is the same, but you will you will tell us more on this question. You're muted. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Risto. First of all, thank you to Institute for invitation to take part in this project and in this panel discussions. And first of all, actually, thanks to my colleagues that are taking part in this panel today, and we are trying to say some things that they make sense about very complex issues, actually, that we are addressing now. I'm not sure, like if everything goes, what I will going to talk about, if it goes also to Macedonia, but we can talk about that in some other rounds. But let me see first try to set the scene, or the scenography for debating this question. I consider the processes of EU integrations as shaped by asymmetric power, divergent political temporalities, and all together on both sides. It's about crisis of, let's say, political imagination. So it's not only the problem about EU enlargement, it's more or less this problem of lacking political imagination, something that we are facing at this point in more general context than just Europe. But let's start to our question. I want to open up the question: what happened in during the last year, or what happened with the narratives and the logic of EU integration since Serbia for this 1 year of students' protests that are still going on. I want to mark something that I find very important for this conversation, and this is that this student protests in Serbia, their signal of generational rupture, or if you want to, I can put it like this. This 1 year, what happened in Serbia, it's signaling that we have new political generation. So we are at the same time trying to understand what does it mean, and also trying to understand it in the concept of EU integrations, because the polls in Serbia, they're going down when it comes to the whole thing, institutional package of talking about EU integrations. I think that it's on 33 or 36%, the recent poll that I saw, which is really going down. So on one side, we have that process of having Serbian citizens being less and less let's say, optimistic about Serbian EU future. But at the same time, we have, as I said, new generation that is bringing to the logic of EU integrations and democracy altogether something completely new, which I want to stress that it's even more important than the polls and the numbers and everything that we were talking about in context of EU integrations until now. I find one difference, like in terms between relationship and situationship, which is new term, and it's as far as I know, it's not yet employed in this context of political theory. But for our conversation, I find it useful, this difference, because I think that on the level of relationship, which is relationship is something that it's institutionalized, that it's we are talking about symmetric partners, political subjects, that there are rules, that there are responsibilities, etc. So somehow in that framework of understanding Serbia and EU as partners in relationship, Serbia is absolutely stuck. I mean, it's not even stuck, it's the whole thing is emptied. Like we are talking about democracy, but without Democrats. We are talking about certain values, but without actually producing a subject, political subject in Serbia, which is somehow, like willing to be part of this EU family. So what happened with, what kind of political subject Serbia must produce? I would start with that in order to become part of European Union. First of all, this subject should not be nostalgic. I mean, I marked a few things. So not to be the interest for Europe to be based on nostalgia. Second, we should not see Europe as a kind of shelter, or I mean, so we will hide with all our problems and complexities and, like within the larger framework that it's already given before us. We should not see European Union as punishment, like as very often the narratives are like that. Well, if we don't do, I mean, it's for sure the same in Macedonia. If we don't do things like that or like this, or if we don't, like accept certain laws or whatever, European Union will stop integrations. So in that sense, not as a punishment, but so how we should, what kind of subject we need in order for Serbia to make this step towards European Union. We need Europe as a democratic horizon. Like, so we need to produce new kind of political subject that it's at the same time beyond domestic authoritarian comfort, let's say, and also Brussels managerial indifference, this bureaucracy, this, like not being particular about context and certain communities, etc. So, I mean, the whole thing is actually, like when we say the process of enlargement of the EU and Serbian position within it, it's the question in theoretical sense, how do we understand political bond. Like, what is political bond at this? And I think that this new generation in Serbia, being, aware of that or not, or being part of their plan or not, I cannot discuss that at this point. But they brought some, I would claim, new logic, and this logic we can name not the logic of relationship with EU, which reflects the politics of institutions, as I said, contracts, identities, continuities, etc., but the logic of situationship, which reflects the politics of emergency, of affects, of uncertainty, of potentiality, if you want. So this metaphor in the context of Serbian students' protests, and I'm going to finish here with these first interventions, it's that I would like to claim that Serbia's relationship with the EU at this point, after the last year, looks more like situationship. It's about proximity, it's about negotiations, it's about ambiguities, it's about unfulfilled promises on both sides, So, but I don't want to discuss this situationship as something negative. I want to discuss it as also possible horizon to think of integrations and relation between Serbia and European Union on different ground. Like, we are facing a new generation, we are facing the crisis of institutions, we are facing the crisis of the logic of social contract, that the whole thing that we are discussing at this point, like in liberal institutions, is based on. So I think this new generation, it's not, I'm not naive, like to put it everything in optimistic terms, and they are, like about their political wisdom. But they are sensing new political times, like, and we do have this, at this point, for a long time, Serbia, for the first time, has promising situationship with Europe in the face of students that were going to Brussels, that they want Brussels, that they need Brussels, but also that they want to change Brussels, like, because they are partners, because they are thinking about common future. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Becca. This is quite interesting. I just wrote one sentence. If I can bottle this up, it's a quite nice to see a group of people who want to grow up. Like just to not to hide, not to be victims for the first time, because this is a very Balkan thing, to be a victim, that everybody hates us. They just, like, we are here, we know what we want, we share values, but I'm not the subordinate.
Yeah.
It's quite refreshing. It's very good that comes from the new generation. Not, maybe my generation tried in North Macedonia, we felt as we felt, but maybe this is the new generation that maybe it will go through. It's a quite okay to have hope.
I mean, at least, sorry.
Yes, they were trying. They are trying.
At least, like, we have to take that into account.
Yes. Yes,
Not
and it's,
to mention that I would go further, like,
yeah.
well, like they are they have completely different logic, Risto, like,
Yes.
and it's really something that it's changing in the Balkans, because before our generations, we were not happy with what is happening in our countries, but we always had this idea that if it's very bad in our countries, there are places we can live. This generation
Yeah.
is facing something completely different. There is nowhere to live. They have to change their own countries. They have to change, like it's about them. So this is this new patriotism that they are talking about, which, like who knows
Yeah.
where will lead us. But for the moment, I think it's
The
important
moment is positive. The
to
moment
take
in
into
this
account.
moment is positive. It's not written in stone that it will last at that, but at this moment, this momentum is it's quite refreshing, and it's quite a good example for all the other countries. Not only North Macedonia and Serbia, but we have Bulgaria, Albania, and Greece. It's completely something different. Okay, thank you, Becca. We will come back with a follow-up question on the second round. Juraj, your take on the question. You're muted, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So, firstly, let me express my gratitude for inviting me once again to the project and to this seminar. So, I personally also regarding my topics of research, I feel more familiar with the current situation in Serbia. So especially, and however, I think that it is not our main task only to see these reasons of stalemate EU integration processes in Macedonia, in Serbia, and in other southeastern European countries as their only the purely domestic affair. In fact, all crises of European integration were taking place not in the new EU member states or EU candidates, maybe at least before 2010, but this crisis took place rather in old EU member states, and they somehow affected our region of Central and Eastern Europe. So those were the old EU member states who were so-called tired of EU integration. Those were the countries like France or Netherlands, so the countries of the projected core of EU who refused the transformation of EU to the kind of federation, who refused this EU constitutional treaty. So the same was why European Union simply allowed to the emergence of de facto authoritarian right-wing populist regimes in Hungary, in the past in Poland, in Serbia, now in Macedonia. So also why this process of integration of Western Balkan states is so slow, regardless the fact that at least, for example, Macedonia several times showed its willingness and readiness to fulfill the criteria which were really which were deeply affecting the Macedonian sovereignty, and there was no another EU candidate states after 1990 facing such sharp identitarian requirements, both from sides of Greece, Albania, and Bulgaria. There is no similar experience in any other Central European state. Also, in case of Serbia regarding Kosovo, okay, probably this from Polish perspectives, or so these are not so relevant issues, but for the people living in these countries, those are relevant issues, and it's apparent that they can mobilize hundreds of thousands people. So therefore, this issue of relevance is we must to perceive it from internal perspective of these countries and not from our relatively comfortable Central European perspectives. So this is the first thing. Regarding Serbia, once again, I think what is going on in this country last year, I find it as even more than the Serbian problem, the problem of European Union. So if European political parties managed to suspend the membership of Fidesz and to kick off, to expel Smer SD from the big European parties, from a European People's Party or from a Party of European Socialists. So I don't understand why the party of Aleksandar Vučić, it means so-called Serbian Progressive Party, is still the partner, as far as I know, associated member of European People's Party. What we have in Serbia now, and we must to say it openly, it is emerging or already highly in progress, authoritarianism high in progress. This Serbia is facing not only some authoritarian trends, Serbia is facing the destruction of state institutions. Serbia is facing massive violation of the human rights. Serbia is facing the use of sonic weapons against the peaceful protesters. And what was the response of European Union? So the problem is not the Serbian slow progress to European integration. The problem is the lack of adequate response of European Union to all these events, which were unimaginable in Central European countries, and which I hope will be unimaginable in other EU member states. So the current regime of Aleksandar Vučić is developing the pressure, is destroying universities. The people are losing their jobs for political reasons, for their participation, or for the participation of their children in the protest events. There was no response from European Union, no critical response from the leaders of all EU member states. And there was no clear message sent to Serbs, to Serbian people, that European Union is a community based on the values based on the respect to the principles. Vice versa, European Union decided to launch the collaboration with the local despotic authoritarian leader. So European Union is doing this deal, and at the same time the European Union is criticizing Viktor Orbán in Hungary. So this is really this one simply cannot understand. And we must ask if European Union is still the value-based community, if this European Union is still the protector of democratic principles, the protector of human rights, and if European Union really wants, is interested in any kind of progress in Balkan states. Because, of course, in current state, in current situation, it is hardly acceptable to recognize any progress in Serbia in terms of fulfilling EU membership criteria. Unfortunately, because really I'm in favor of integration of Serbia to the European Union. But what would mean any acceptance to current politics in Serbia? What would it mean for other EU member states? It would mean the normalization of Vučić-like regimes, with normalization of the practices of Alexander Vučić on the level of European Union. And is really European Union seriously interested in it, or would it be possible in EU, under EU legal framework, to develop, for example, such activities as lithium mining in the nature protected areas, like in it is going on in Serbia? So is the EU behavior towards Serbia the behavior towards the EU candidate state, or is it behavior like towards I don't know, roughly speaking, former French colonies in the northern and west central and western Africa? Yeah. So in exchange, simply to make the deal with local dictators, instead of some kind of raw materials, you will be backed, politically backed for any price. So this is, in my opinion, now the fundamental question now. So I'm afraid you, of course, I was in favor also personally to the EU should become a geopolitical actor. However, such a big discrepancy between the declared principles and the political practices is really a step that is resulting in the anti-EU moods in Balkan countries, and it is resulting in the increasing Euroscepticism in not only in Balkan states. So of course we must be aware of the fact that simply societies in Western Balkan states are also extremely tired. Extremely tired of this long-going process, and now European integration is, of course, in a certain crisis of the support for the deepening of this integration. And we must not say how to meet the EU criteria. We must rather and I agree with Professor Christina Griessler, we must rather think how to make not only Balkan society, but also Central European societies more progressive. And we must also point out that our societies are not progressing, because I speak our societies because this EU fatigue is also playing significant role in Slovakia, and our government is also thinking in the so-called sovereignist way and spreading these anti-European moods. But we must point out that really our societies are backsliding, and not because of EU requirements, but because our domestic problems. And to point out what are our that the meeting or the fulfilling of EU criteria is a step towards our modernization and not towards the fulfilling the requirements of European Union. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Juraj. Yeah. I think that we can all agree that this is not a one direction problem. It's from the both sides, and yeah, I'm totally getting your side out of this, and yeah, I think that we will come back exactly to that question in the second question of this panel. Okay, we have Michal now to end this cycle.
Hi, Risto.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Just everybody was expressing the gratitude for this is to happen. I'm sorry for the little hazy background. It's well, that's it. And first of all, it's the third project in the more or less the similar consortium, so we should be expressing more gratitude to the Visegrad Fund that we are continuing in the course of action that actually provides a space to think a little bit different what is in the think tank world, what is in the media, what is let's say the popular narrative about the EU integration in terms of also both from the EU side, EU member states, as well as from Skopje or from Belgrade. I would point out two elements. The first is, and I'm speaking on the from the sitting in Skopje, living here. I would point out one thing regarding North Macedonia. Look, let's be honest. We are in the periphery of periphery. Nobody is interested. Nobody from the side of Brussels. Nobody cares. For more than since the French proposal, the EU integration is take it or leave it. And the thing is that from the EU side, there is definitely the narrative and the story. I mean, the story of the Europe integration got significantly weaker. It's a simple, like it's the fact. It's the reaction on the French proposal. It's the situation in Serbia generally, that we see more siding, that EU speaks about this value-based community, and in the reality it is pushing for economic interests that are everything but value-based, as the case of lithium mine in Serbia. So we see that it's simply the story, the narrative that the EU enlargement is about values, is about being Europeanized, is gone. Or okay, it's here, it's replicated, but is significantly weaker, which emptied the space for other narratives, other not necessarily actors, but simply not emptied the space, but rather created a vacuum in which, like, we don't know, that if I should bet if there will be any enlargement by 2030, or if the EU will be looking differently, like even more differentiated than it is now, or maybe totally reshaped as it is now, I would say, 50-50. Really, this is something that it's in the integration process since the 50s. We don't know. We don't know how is the European Union look like if it still keeps this, value-based community, or we say, okay, it's about business and we prefer the business relations over the values, but we will play it that way. Which leads me to the second point. And I was thinking a lot, and sorry, I don't want to be. No, I was okay. I will go ahead. If I were a political leader, for example, this very case of North Macedonia, if I was in the capacity of being able to create some certain intellectual background for the political strategy that is about to come in the next few years, or let's say in the next decade, I would seriously consider the option, what happens once the EU enlargement is not on the political agenda, and if the enlargement is not decisive element for the political narrative in the Western Balkans in general, and specifically here in Macedonia, in terms of what happens, what to do next in terms of like real strategy, and I mean intellectually based strategy or ideas-based strategy that would that would be sold to citizens as, let's talk about it. We want to drag you into something that we see that that there is an alternative, or there is something that we want to be realistic about, which means that I wouldn't be able to. I don't want to go in the direction what was happening with Macedonia in 2014 under Gruevski. And this has we have already experienced that in the region. So I'm saying I'm going bit big in the back and saying, let's, if I was a political leader, knowing that I will not be able to sell the story of the EU integration, let's say in the next election cycle, what is my strategy in terms of shaping the sense of belonging to the, let's say, to the greater political or value-based community? It's still the European Union. In what sense? Is this some sort of collaboration a la Serbia that we work with everybody, but yet trying to be friends and making money on behalf of everyone? Or what is it? And I think that the longer we keep this idea of, yes, there is Europe integration, but we don't know how does it actually looks, then the more surprise we get when suddenly this will be shaped as not thought through strategy, but as a moment idea shortly before the election, saying, yeah, let's try, and the damage will be much greater than just giving try to come up with something that will be, let's say, with greater impact than just one election cycle. Said that, I would be very sad to see this happening, first of all. Second, we know, and I think this is also from the point of the European countries and also from the Central Europe, if we think that there is a button that we in the region know that there is the basement is very deep. So any idea that would be some kind of that the region is not based, or is not developing based on, let's say, how it was evidence-based policy or some kind of thought through strategy. So there are many obstacles, and I would be really sad to seeing them to happening, but at the same time, the zeitgeist has changed. The European Union has changed, and I don't see, sadly, I don't see the, especially here in Macedonia, I don't see the adjustments of to that situation as a matter of political strategy. As a matter of rhetorics, yes, but as a matter of strategy, absolutely not a changed course of action. So yeah, thank you, Risto.
Thank you, Michal. Yeah. So, listening to all of you, I would like to reformulate my final question to all of you. Just piling on everything that you said. Considering the prolonged stagnation of the EU integration, an interplay between EU-level constraints and domestic political shortcomings, what specific policy intervention and institutional reforms could North Macedonia and Serbia undertake to proactively overcome the current accession impasse and transition from a narrative of structural victimization toward a strategy grounded in agency, accountability, and measurable progress? Yeah, Becca.
Who should?
Just
Yeah.
sorry.
Go
Well,
ahead.
just to make, like follow up on what I already stated, but this question is perfect for that. Well, to follow what to learn the lesson from young people in Serbia, which gave us all somehow, like, or reminded us at least that democracy as our common European horizon should come from below, not from the above. And we were all about these institutional things, like, and somehow what is happening at this moment, I would say, is that they're building new connections, new coalitions, and new political landscape of Europe. Like, it's not anymore about people from Serbia expecting that Europe will take care of us, because it won't, and it shouldn't. Like, so I mean, the perspective is changing, and we should be, like, as let's quote Derrida here, listen this very carefully as a political gesture. So that's it.
Thank you, Becca. Anybody else can? Christina?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think the last comment was very good. I mean, I think we have to think, or the population has to think why you want the EU, or maybe why you don't want the EU. I think this is even a question the population should ask in their own countries. I mean, the situation, I'm based here in Hungary. I mean, the government is very much saying, well, what the EU is not good for, or what the EU is to be blamed of, and the EU is kind of creating wars and whatever. But I mean, I think the people do have an understanding what it means to be member of the EU, and they can see the positives as well. So I think the population, I'm not quite sure who is able to do that. I mean, in the case of Serbia now, the students, they stood up for something, and they didn't say we're standing up for it because the EU wants us to do that. They stood up because they realized, we don't want this corruption anymore. We don't want this nepotism. We don't want the state capture. We don't want the people, buildings and public spaces being sold off to the US and Trump friends. So, they have a clear idea what they don't want. And that, because of that, the idea develops, okay, what do we want? I mean, they can ask for a democratic society, so it should come up from the bottom. And if they want to join the EU or not, I mean, maybe it happens, maybe there is another alternative, but I think what I really would suggest, what's not a strategic good way to go the certain road down, is to align yourself with wrong political leaders such as Viktor Orban, because you never know how long Orban is going to be able to do, being able to influence the public opinion in the region, and how much money they can send in the region as well, to certain parties to convince them to be in a good relationship, or was it a citizenship or relationship? So, I mean, I think the political elites in the country should be aware, if they're going to line up with people maybe like Fico and Orban and Babiš, that's not going to help either on the way to the European Union. So I really like the idea of the bottom-up approach. I think really understanding what the people want, and I mean, hopefully, I mean, this is actually the idea that the EU is able to help with that. But okay, sometimes the EU cannot help with it. I mean, they helped in the case of 2016, the political crisis in North Macedonia, to try to sort that out. Then they were pushing the social democratic government, and they were not able to deliver on certain grounds because maybe the situation was not right, or there were other issues. But I think we need to have a conversation, an honest conversation about the EU, what it is good for, or what's maybe not so good for, what do we expect, and what the alternatives are as well. That's my thanks.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, as North Macedonia and Serbia, we have a fair share of our authoritarians. Yeah, I know, but in the same time, if I don't know, if I'm just like pointing a line, the plus side for the region, especially I can speak only for North Macedonia, for example, is the value systems and so on and so on, and as a relatively young person, I have a problem with the victim state. I'm born 83. I'm constantly all my life I was living with this society notion that we are the victims, we are the righteous one, but we have like these big evil things that they don't like us, and so on and so on. I think that must stop, as Becca suggested. That must stop, not only in North Macedonia but in the region itself, because everybody in this region has that story, and maybe what we are talking when we're talking about the European Union, we are talking about the values of the European Union, the core values. I'm not pointing to the problem in the family of the European Union. That every family has that kind of problems, But the core values, the core principle, I think that it's something that it's good for the region. I think that the region is physically, psychologically, mentally a Europe. Like we are part of that. So yeah. Sorry for my intervention, Spasimir. Sorry.
Thank you, Risto, and thank you all for your thoughts and arguments. I would like to second what you said, and actually encouraged me to raise the hand, because I absolutely agree that the victimization discourse is just counterproductive. I mean, it is the opposite to what you want to achieve. And I will just add to what you said. You said a kind of a future perspective, because I also live in a country in which the victim narrative was exploited for 2 decades to create a picture of a country that deserves It deserves to join the EU. It deserves to join NATO. The West was bad because it left us on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain. And all these sense of feeling that we are, as Michal said about periphery of the periphery. Well, we were maybe at least a periphery, but still not the core. And the truth is that you want to join a club of countries that are partners, that there are no victims and perpetrators, but that where countries function as partners in shared interest of being together rather being against each other. So in that sense, and I absolutely side with what you said about this constant reshuffling of the concept of a victim in North Macedonia. Whether it's going to be towards the Greeks, whether it's going to be towards the Bulgarians, whether it's going to be towards the Serbs, or whether it's going to be anyone who is on the spot just to make a justification not to do your homework. And
Yes.
that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry that that Jelisaveta left us, because I just wanted to refer to the Serbian dimension. And what I wanted to say is that what happens currently in Serbia, as long as it is terrifying, it is also a hope. And it is a hope because if we look at the essence of these protests, they're actually EU sterile. The EU is not present in these protests. It is present with the disappointment from its reaction. And in that sense, what the Serbs struggle for, because it's not only the students, what the Serbs struggle for is for a normally functioning state. If they will manage to prevail at home, this will be a refreshing moment for the whole European integration, because the EU has its own internal troubles, and we don't have the time and space to discuss this currently, but we can make a next podcast on these issues. And they're also settled in particular, I would say, institutionally petrified forms of functioning that are quite far from the values that we were here referring to. And the EU, whether we like it or not, is not a democratic structure. The EU receives its democracy through the democracy of its member states. But if they're not democratic, the EU process is also infected. And it has its own internal dimension when it comes to its technocratic functioning. But I leave that aside. What will happen if the protests in Serbia will fail? They will embolden Vučić type of authoritarians all over the region. And the concerns which we raised will spill over around these countries that are under the direct influence of Serbia at this point. So to sum up, as I started, it's the agency. It is what you do, what is your own determination, that can make the wheel turning. Otherwise, yes, you can be the victim.
By the way, just to emphasize one thing that Becca said at the beginning of her lecture about the students and what is the difference now. I don't think that a priori they are failing. If this new political mind is emerging from them, it will not be the same. You cannot stop something that is just saying we are not playing that game anymore. They're refusing to play that game. They're refusing to be put in on the side of a victim. And it's a kind of a resistance that is very resilient towards the normatives of the political reality at this moment. Like you cannot kill it that easy. You cannot, you can try to isolate it. You cannot, you can try demonize it, but it's there. You cannot kill it. I think that is the real fear of the new, and I think that was the point. I don't want to speak from a Becker perspective, but that was my feeling listening to her. That nevertheless, if this fails or not, there is an emergence of a new class, the emergence of the new, who are saying, we will walk this, despite everything.
I like this enthusiasm,
But
I'm
it's good to
very
have. It's a good, yeah. I think that in these times of cynicism and a lot of things, it's good to have maybe naive, but nevertheless, even in naivety, you have a root for something.
Risto, we are on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I think is important. That's why this struggle is so crucial.
Yeah.
And this is where we can express our concerns about the attitude of the alleged beacon of democracy, right?
Yeah, I know that it's a point that we can turn this thing and say, okay, you are not recognizing this, but nevertheless, it's the second thing that I learned from Becky is that they don't care. They don't care if the beacon is pro that. They will make them be pro them. So it's quite refreshing for me. Sorry, sorry, Juraj. I'm holding the time. Yeah, come.
So I also agree that this domestic discourses in Central European countries about the victimization, these self-victimization narratives were brought profit, were productive maybe in 1990s in the shaping of our new nationalisms, but on the now they are already counterproductive. So in this way, I agree. But my point was mainly that there are not only Serbia or Macedonia who are in troubles. There is also European Union. European Union who is powerless to deal with the consolidation of authoritarianism, not only in candidate states, because I'm not sure if really even such countries as Montenegro or Albania are so much better, so much more they made so bigger progress than, for example, North Macedonia did. But I think the European Union is powerless facing authoritarian consolidation of authoritarianism in Hungary. And the European Union is also powerless regarding what's going on in Slovakia now. So really, from this point of view, it is our homework of our societies, regardless if we are the EU members or not. And it was also a homework of Polish society completed in 2023, but I'm not sure if successfully or not. I'm a little bit skeptical in it, but still. So yes, so Serbs showed that their narratives must not be only about the European Union, that these narratives should be about the normal society. But this is also our Central European concern already. Yeah. So to make some to repeat our experience from the end of 1980s.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Juraj. I think that we are at the end of our time for this podcast. Thank you all. I think that this was a great start in the subject. We heard different voices. We raised quite different issues. We hope that we will have more time to concentrately attack one at a time of all of these subjects. I wish you a good night and thanks to everybody listening to this podcast. Have a great night. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.